to the theater.
It is the Al Travis Show, and some days just go so much smoother than others. But we're going to have a good one anyway. I've got him, Senator Paul Gazelka. Senator, can you hear me?
Al, can you hear me?
I can, and I'm sorry about... What's interesting is, we do the same Zoom thing 30 times a week, and you've always had an issue with it as far as what works with your computer, and so does Senator Nick Frentz. The only two that on a regular, and I have no idea why, and I thank you for pounding through that to get here and do it the old school way. Just do it on the phone. I appreciate you. I'm sorry for all the issues. I have no idea what they are, but I thank you. I thank you for working through it.
Well, I now have my Medicare Part A card, so old school's good with me.
See, sometimes, and again, I kids call me boomer. Sometimes it was just better back in the day. It just worked all the time. And Zoom is fantastic when it works, but when it doesn't, I don't know how to fix it. I honestly, sorry, I have no idea. But thank you for doing that for me. And true story, let's tell folks how we get back together here this week. I have a friend of mine who's pretty politically minded, sends me an email, text, whatever, right out of the blue. Did you hear Gazelka's back in? He's running for governor. Like, didn't hear that. No. Yep. Just saw it online, X or whatever it was. So I have your phone number. I text you, said, congratulations, are you back in? And you didn't know you were back in, did you?
No, I think I'd have to be dragged back in. I saw on X after we talked one of my old ads from 2022 about voter ID, and I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good ad. But no, after I wasn't selected by Republicans, I made a choice to give away quite a bit of money to help a bunch of candidates, and I thought, I'm going to take a shot at it. I've had enough of the Senate. I said I would serve 10 years, and I ended up 12 because I was the leader. But, no, I'm not looking to be the tip of the spear.
And that's fair enough. I felt so bad after texting that because, I should have checked it out first. I really, figured this guy had seen what he saw. And the internet is AI is going to ruin America. I'm going to be honest with you, sir. As we go down this road, when you can't trust your lying eyes, when you see someone saying something, and I don't know if you saw that there's a video of Biden back in the day behind the Resolute desk, and he's just going off on an Effenheimer this and a rant. You knew it was fake, but you couldn't tell by looking at it. You just knew the president would say that. When we get to that point, they're going to say, oh, this candidate said that. He goes, I never said that. And then there'll be a video that you can't tell the difference. I think we're going down a road we can't fix.
Yeah, and social media, even without AI, is so powerful. I mean, there's groups out there that put pretty convincing information in a video format, and people just believe it. And a lot of it's just not true. And you can convince somebody's best friend that you're a jerk and you did this or that, and now you add AI to it, and it's like, holy buckets, it's going to be tough.
For folks who don't know, and not everybody pays attention, and we have short attention spans, give us the Paul Gazelka background. How did you get all the way up to the run in the Senate? You're going to say 10, got 12. I get that, but most folks don't. Give us your background and where you're from and how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, I'm a Brainerd East Gull Lake resident and a State Farm insurance agent, and I've done that my whole life. But first I was contacted to run for House and decided to do it. Won my first election, and in a swing district lost my second one. And I thought, well, I've had enough of that. I enjoy being a business owner and having most everybody like you, but politics, that's not the case. But we had a very liberal Republican legislator as a senator, and I just decided I was going to run against him, and won. And, then climbed up the ladder, and 6 years into the Senate, I was picked to be the leader. David Hand was the minority leader that brought us to the victory in 2016, but he got beat. And so I said, I would have supported him, but I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and my team picked me on the first ballot, and I had the privilege of serving as leader for 5 years, which is the longest Republican serving Senate Majority Leader in modern history, which isn't saying much, but I ended up having to oppose Tim Walz over bad COVID decisions and the riot decisions and the tearing down of the statue of Christopher Columbus and the beginning of the fraud issues that came to light. I mean, one thing after the other. And as a result of that, after I didn't win governor, I thought I'm going to write a book about some of my experiences. It's, Behind the Veil. And, we're talking now, but I think in about 3 days, the audio version is also going to be available on Amazon. So I hope people check it out if they want to refresh their memory about Tim Walz.
I would like that. And the book is, Paul Gazelka writes, Behind the Veil, A Stand Against Governor Tim Walz. Because you were there, right? You're behind the curtain when we were going in through Minnesota, well, the country, I guess, through some of our roughest times in any kind of recent years, the COVID days, the knocking, the riots and all the rest. People remember that. When you watch then after you get out, sir, and you see what else has been going on, and you brought up the fraud and that sort of thing, how about when you see Tim Walz run for vice president? Did you see anything new there? Was this all you knew exactly what was going on? You knew the guy? Or did you see something different when he ran for vice president?
No, I think I was surprised that he had been to China something like 30 times. That certainly was a surprise to me. And it's interesting. It was the January before he announced they announced he was going to be the VP candidate. That's when I started writing the book. I really wanted to capture all the things that had happened, not just against Tim Walz, but how to govern, what that looks like. And so I finished that in June, and I really just laid it aside. I thought, well, I'm really glad I wrote it so I can remember everything. And then suddenly he's picked to be the VP candidate, and now the chapters related to Tim Walz are really, really important. And I tend to get along with just about everybody, but when he's applying for the second highest position in the country, I really felt like I needed to be very direct about his lack of leadership skills and how it led us to very, very bad things. And so what's really, I think helpful is during COVID, much of my meetings were with the governor were all texting or Zoom. And so I had these long text strings about what actually happened and when, so I could go back and document everything to the minute about our conversations. And, that's why I'm very confident the book was very, very accurate about what happened.
Well, let me ask you this, because the book is called Behind the Veil. Does that imply, should I take from that there was, I don't want to say hidden, that maybe the news media in this state wasn't doing its job to look behind that veil, that they were not doing what they were supposed to, that some of this stuff you write about was secret, that shouldn't we have known about some of this? China for 30, as an example, going to China 30 times. How, if you live in Minnesota, he's been your governor, you didn't know that?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, how it actually works behind the scenes. That everybody, whether you're on the left or the right, you think your side should get 100% of what they want, and they can't figure out why you haven't. So I kind of talk about divided government, and then a lot of the where Tim Walz was basically frozen during the riots after George Floyd. I remember during COVID, he was saying 40 to 50,000 people were going to die, and it was like, what are you listening to? And I would say, are you looking at New York? Because New York had numbers not even near that, with a much more condensed population in their metro areas. And it was like, how can you be making those judgments when at the same time I'm texting out to a constituent that I think it's going to be 5,000 people, which is what it was a year later. Yeah. And so it really captured his either inability to make a decision or making decisions and not making good ones. And then like the tearing down of the statue of Christopher Columbus, I think people kind of forgot that Tim Walz just looked the other way. I mean, there was one police officer placed outside by the statue when they were notified that a small group of protesters with Mike Garcia were going to go up there and tear it down. And then that highway patrol literally went into the building after talking to the protesters. Nobody's out there, and they tear it down. And in the book, I said, I bolted up there, and I couldn't verify in my mind that I actually saw the truck hauling the statue away. But later I found my own photo from my office of the picture of the flatbed truck. I mean, so it happened so fast. They tore it down. The truck was immediately there, even though I was a mile away, got to my office right away. It was already gone. It was like those kind of things, you know, I don't think the media really emphasized how pathetic these things were. And so I wanted to make sure people didn't forget.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's not been rectified yet, has it? The statue's not been fixed and put back.
No, it was laying in a Department of Transportation building somewhere. They never would tell us. You know, I said if I was elected governor, one of my first decisions was going to be to put that statue back. If the legislative branch, which is the people's voice, wants to remove it, fine, that's up to them, but not a mob. And you know, so you know, and even all the fraud. At the time I wrote the book, we knew there was about $500 million of fraud. Now it's over $1 billion. But I don't think the media emphasized that there was the non-partisan office of the legislative auditor that chastised the governor and his team for not taking these things serious. Well, it only got worse from there.
Well, I got to go to break. On the other side, let's talk about what has happened since you left. It is Paul Gazelka's book, Behind the Veil, A Stand Against Governor Tim Walz. It is coming out in audio in the next couple of days. Find it if you go on our page. It's on Amazon, easy enough to find. We got much more coming up right after this.
If it's your turn to host a game, Grandpa's Barbecue suggests you try something different. Put out the perfect barbecue flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. Add it to your ribs, dip the meatballs, or drench your wings in the original flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. It isn't too hot or spicy, fruity or smoky or whatever. Grandpa's Barbecue. Available in select stores and online at grandpasbarbecueshop.com.
You need a friend at the Capitol who knows how to get things done.
And you're in luck, because that's exactly who we are, your friends at the Capitol, and we deliver results.
At Momentum Advocacy, we bring decades of experience in lobbying, public affairs, and crisis communications.
From local nonprofits to national corporations, we help you move policy, manage your media, and make your voice heard.
We're not just seasoned pros, we're essential partners.
Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol. Learn more at momentum-advocacy.com.
The Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
We're grateful to have me is Senator Paul Gazelka. He wrote the book Behind the Veil, A Stand Against Governor Walz. Comes out in audio here in the next couple of days, so get your copy today. So, Senator, after you leave, so you went out in 22?
Yeah, that was my last year. I also wasn't the leader that last year.
So when you get out and you watch what happens, they do get the trifecta. We spend an $18 billion surplus. We add $10 billion in taxes. And for the last 2 years, it isn't a month hasn't gone by, I'm guessing here, that we haven't found some sort of fraud that's taking most of that money and just walking it out the back door. Did you see this coming? And what do we do to rectify it?
Well, we saw about $500 million of it, and now it's Medicaid and housing, and they project more than $1 billion. And the buck has to stop somewhere, and it really is Tim Walz. I mean, you have to expect the leaders that you appoint as commissioners to be. They should be fiscal hawks. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican, but they just very, very sloppy. And that was one of the cases I made. He should not be the second command nationally because we already have a huge debt. But it was very frustrating to watch. I mean, because we wouldn't spend that $18 billion of surplus. We were willing to spend a third of it and give a third back in tax relief and save a third on the bottom line. But they blew the wad, and now we project, they had a $6 billion shortfall, I believe, was the projection. And and that was just very, very poor management. And so, and then watching the trifecta get, they got rid of any compromised pro-life positions.
Mm-hmm.
Parents should have been notified when their adolescent was pregnant. They took away all the money from programs that helped women that wanted to have a baby. They took all that money away. They pushed more aggressive gun legislation, raised taxes. It was just like, this is hard to watch. And, once it's done, it's really hard to change. And Republicans haven't had that trifecta in more than 40 years. And so we're in a tough spot in Minnesota.
But you've been there. You've been in the mix of it. I keep saying if now is not the time when we see money running out the door, we had a governor who wants his third term. We see education. He's the education guy. Plummet as far as scores go. When would be a better time? You look at the Minneapolis thing, a precarious state. Rick Capcello is going to be on tomorrow. Everything seems to be pointing against this guy, but yet he thinks he can get a third term. Is this the time? And if not now, it's might as well give it up. When are you going to have a better opportunity? Minnesota.
Yeah, it is the time. And we had bought a house in Florida and thought, I think I'm going to become a resident, but we shifted gears. We bought a condo there instead, and we want to fight for Minnesota. And so I want a candidate running for governor that can win, and not every candidate out there can win. And so, I hope we pick somebody that is strong enough to do it. That's how we begin to change our state. Pawlenty was the last person in 2006 that was governor, and so we have to think about what does it take for a Republican to win in Minnesota. The Senate, we hadn't won the Senate majority in more than 40 years.
Yep.
And then while I was there, we won 3 out of 4 election cycles. And so there is a way to win. Okay. And a lot of times the choices are choices that will cause Republicans not to take the majority. So hopefully we'll get it right.
Senator, I thank you for taking the time to be on. He's Senator Paul Gazelka. He wrote the book Behind the Veil, A Stand Against Governor Tim Walz. The audio version is out in the next couple of days. Sir, thank you for taking the time to be on the show today. I appreciate you. I really do.
Yeah, next time we'll figure it out, Al. Zoom is the way.
It is. I appreciate you, sir. We'll be back after this with more.
Tired of one-sided media and divisive noise drowning out your concerns?